everyone. Thank you, Charlie and GMU, for inviting SECAF to participate in this session on government contracting in a changed world, acquisition and procurement. My name is Kathryn Freeland. I'm the CEO of A-TEK, a woman-owned small business providing application development, IT modernization, CIO support, and scientific services to federal health and civilian agencies. And I'm also a member of the board of SECAF. For those unfamiliar with the Small and Emerging Contractor Advisory Forum, SECAF is an important resource for a growing company. Membership consists of small and emerging government contractors, and SECAF provides business resources, access to influencers, government agencies, advocacy opportunities, and education needed to enable company growth. I have the pleasure of moderating this morning's panel on the topic, the government's response to COVID, a small business contractor's perspective. Join me in welcoming our panel for today, Angel Diaz, CEO of Allegient Defense, a premier small business leader in the science and technology space that provides a unique set of capabilities and services, ranging from research and development to design and engineering of specialized technologies, such as data analytics and artificial intelligence. Also joining us this morning is Chris Crowder, Regional Vice President of Unanet, a leader in ERP software solutions for government contractors for more than 20 years now, and has more than 2,000 clients. Unanet provides simple, transparent control over a contractor's day-to-day operations, as well as their forecasting and planning. It was purpose-built in-house by GovCon professionals, which makes Unanet the only native integrated cloud ERP solution built for the ground up to serve this unique market. And finally, Vinny Raj, Managing Director, Digilent Consulting and its affiliated JVs, an award-winning digital services consulting firm supporting U.S. federal government agencies by providing, implementing, and managing IT modernization solutions. Their focus is on helping agencies to better engage with citizens and veterans and internal government employees by leveraging technology for a better user experience. These three leaders represent the small business community who are guiding their businesses as government contractors through unprecedented times caused by the COVID pandemic. Welcome, gentlemen, and welcome to all of our guests who are joining us this morning as well. We have roughly 40 minutes to discuss this all-important topic. Each of our panelists will give their perspective on topics associated with the government's response to COVID. We will leave time at the end for our audience to ask questions using the chat button at the bottom of your screen, and I will ask as many of those questions as I possibly can at the end. So I'm going to start our questioning with Angel. Angel, COVID has impacted all of our lives, and especially small businesses, which are the lifeblood of the economy and the drivers of innovation. Yet the government has had to rapidly adapt acquisition and procurement to this new environment. As a small business, please share with the audience your perspective on the government's response to COVID and the impact that response has had on the operations of your business, especially now that you may be faced with workforce safety and health challenges.
Thank you, Kathy. I have to say, COVID hit everybody, fast, right? And, I know the government typically moves slow. It's a huge organization, right? But I think as it pertains to COVID, especially our clients within the DoD, they've been great, right? I think they recognized that they had to quickly adapt in order to continue to support the mission, right? So, it really is about reciprocal engagement, right? With our premier clients, especially, we have a team on site. We have the executive team constantly engaging the client side. But at the same time, the client has been very engaging as well, right? Not just from an operational perspective, keep our projects moving forward, but from a contractual perspective, right? And again, I think, it always falls upon us as contractors to drive the engagement. But we're very fortunate that the government has been reciprocal. At the same token, right, leveraging new processes, right, new agile methodologies. For example, we do a lot of scrum calls, right, every single day in some cases, and we leverage technology as well. I think it's a combination of having the right people who want to engage, right, also leveraging technology and putting formalized process in place, right? So it removes the ambiguity from the environment, right? My team knows they do agile meetings every day rather. Once a week, our government client joins, for example, right? We do formal and informal engagement, right? So obviously, I myself engage our clients periodically, my COO, several vice presidents, and so on, directors and managers on site as well. So we have a very cohesive team here within the company. and that cohesion, right, really has helped us over communicate with the client, which I think in this case is necessary, right? If you're serious about you're not letting anything fall through the cracks, I think over communication is key. And leveraging technology, processes, and again, at the end of the day, it's about people, right? Folks have to be trained right. Folks have to be in the spirit of communication. It's very easy to check the box, right, and not really get things across the finish line. In our company, we focus on execution. It's kind of the culture of the company, and that's how we operate. And we've seen, I think the government's been great in general. We've seen differences amongst different departments, right? Our DoD clients have been on point, right? Our DHS clients, same thing, much of the same thing. We've been very fortunate, right, to have had clients who really want to keep things moving forward as fast as possible, right? Not just from an operational perspective, but from a contracts perspective as well. We've seen some slowdowns, however, with Department of Energy and Department of State, right? I'm not sure exactly why, but I think it ultimately comes down to the organization, to the culture of the organization, right? And their ability to adopt these new processes, these new technologies, right? It's been over 6 months now. I think a lot of the pain points have been worked through at this point. And I think we've all come to the conclusion that it's never going to be the same again, right? And I think that's a good thing. I think we've evolved the workforce, right? We've moved things, we've matured the way in which we work and engage. So I'm very happy for that. But I don't think we're going back to the way it was before. There may not be a need, to be honest. I think the hybrid approach, on-site, off-site, leveraging technology, agile processes from an engagement perspective and a work product development perspective, I think are working out, at least for our company, our partners who I engage with, regularly.
Thanks, Angel. And obviously, it sounds like because of the way your team is organized, that impacts on, because you're now more of a virtual workforce, even though we're dealing with health challenges around COVID, sounds like because of the way you're structured maybe and how your team is situated, that you may not be having as much of an impact because I know you said earlier, many of your staff members work on site with the government. But obviously now our government customers are also working off site. So is that the case across the board within your organization, or do you have pockets of staff that happen to be also back at the job location?
Sure. Yeah, so the front office, right? So my three functional areas, BD, business development, finance and HR, and operations, right? They're all on site at my office here in Roslyn, right? Boston. And we have to come into the office, but not all at the same time and not every single day, right? So there's a hybrid approach to us here. I'm here at the office today. One of my other executives here, and perhaps some folks in this team. Not everybody at the same time. We obviously take precautions. We early on when this happened, we went ahead and invested in KN95 masks. So we have many thousands, right? So we give those to our clients. We give those to our employees on site, and of course the front office always has them. So we changed the way in which we work a little bit, but I think we haven't lost engagement, right? It's almost transparent. I can't tell who's at the office and who isn't sometimes because we haven't really skipped a beat. Now the folks on site, most of them are remote. In some cases, when they got to do classified work, right, they have to come into the office for that. And we do have classified spaces here in our office, right? So they have flexibility, right? They can do that work here in a secure area. They can go onto the client site, and then of course the work that it's not classified, right? They can do that from their home office. We've also invested significantly in Office 365, right? So having a GCC High certified Office 365 platform does provide a certain level of additional security that, although it's not classified, right, it does allow a secure working space and secure repositories for our folks to communicate through, to receive emails and secure emails, and also upload documents to the repository. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Angel. And I push that same question over to Vinny. Again, kind of share your perspective, Vinny, as well on, the government's response to COVID and the impact that it may have had on your operations, especially in the fact that we're trying to keep our workforce safe and some of the health challenges that we're all facing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'll provide you a couple examples from an agency-specific perspective, and then, further down the road, I think we'll have an opportunity to expand on some specific use cases from within those agencies. But, some of the agencies that we work with, extensively, for the VA and USDA, for example, they quickly, adopted, with technologies to make sure their own employees are able to work remotely. We actually supported a DoD client, to allow 15 plus thousand of their employees to be able to make sure that they can access and do their work from home, where they typically weren't otherwise. So from a reaction perspective, it's thoroughly impressive. As Angel mentioned, as large as the agencies are across the government, and how quickly they did kind of deploy the technologies so that they could keep their workforce safe and healthy was absolutely amazing. And along the whole way, the engagement and communication was in place to make sure, for ideas. They were asking us, hey, do you guys have ideas on, what we can help to provide to help improve and make sure productivity stays up. Obviously from a trend perspective, very interestingly enough, over the past recent years with, from a technology perspective, the adoption of technology, the way, solutions and processes and systems have been deployed, have kind of led up to this way of operating at this point. So I think, that has certainly helped a lot of the government agencies to be able to rapidly kind of pivot. Right. And I think that really is the key word is, the agencies really pivoted this year, in order to be able to, adapt to the environment of everything that's going on. So, from my perspective and a number of my colleagues that we speak to, kudos to a lot of the government agencies that, that took this on. And honestly, the hours of work, that's a question that still comes up every day, right? Not just for us as a contractor, but for the government employees. I mean, people are working more than ever, right? And especially the first couple of months when people were working remotely, and to make sure that, agency work, everyone from program folks to procurement, acquisition, contracts, everyone was working around the clock. And then I think that was a big thing. And I don't know if that was by design by the, the heads of the agencies that they requested their employees of that or not, but, everyone stepped up. And I think that really showed. So, that's my perspective. And I've been very pleased with, with how the government has been looking to look out for not just themselves, but even for us as a contractors. I think it actually brought us together even closer, just going through this together.
Yeah, I agree with you, Vinny, especially from the perspective of many government agencies, even though they had teleworking policies for their staff, it was nothing like the entire team being, working from home all simultaneously. And even those clients that were a little leery about teleworking, especially as contractors, teleworking remote and being remote and servicing them, some of our clients were a little leery about that. But now it's like it's working, and like I agree with you. I think it's going to be part of our new normal. It just matters to what degree, So Chris, how about you? Are you seeing similar on your side?
Yeah, so thanks. I guess a couple of introductory points here to differentiate myself and to some extent my role on this panel from Angel, Vinny, and yourself, Kathy. So, first off, we represent really collectively the small business contractors within our ecosystem. That's more our collective experiences, I think, from the panel versus the Northrop's, Raytheon's, whomever else you want to go. And so they'll have a different lens. But I think this is, just as you said at the beginning, a critical lens, drives innovation. This is really important aspect of the government, and Unanet in particular. While we are not the one servicing those government customers, we have 2,000 contractors that are our customers. So I'm representing both our clients, our customers, and the broader ecosystem of which we're a member. That the ripple effects, if you will, with how Angel and Vinny just laid out what happens to our industry as things change. So I guess the other perspective that I would like to change to offer, again, because the client base that isn't necessarily represented by Angel and Vinny and yourself here, Kathy, who could be on this panel, and it just so happens to facilitate it today. Obviously a leader in GovCon yourself. are the cleared resources. So on that Intel side, it was a very different experience at the beginning. I think there's a lot of success stories that we get to take. The word pivot I heard a number of times, and I think all of us are relieved with the speed and largely effectiveness with which we were able to pivot. But some of our small business customers, especially in that cleared environment, really struggled. And candidly, I heard from two in particular who are as much friends as clients. They would have been out of business in June if this didn't happen. They don't have unlimited funds to pay for unlimited PTO, and one kind of cleared PhD left to join Amazon because they didn't know what was going to happen with the government. They're not going to, and now they have this kind of 1 week on, 1 week off, because unlike some of the projects and work that we hear from, Angel and Vinny and others, that is not going to be sustainable in the long term. They're going to need to find a way to get, fully staffed group back into, doing the good work of the mission full time rather than half time. I mean, they're all exceeding expectations with the hours that are available, but I've heard a number of times, you don't hear this too frequently, but well, we did the best we could. This is the hours that we had available to us, the funds that we had available to us, and we did the best we could, rather than, yes, it's right. Yes, it's perfect, right? Whatever. I mean, it's, and so I think that is big. But I think, the other aspect, the ripple effects that I worry about are kind of what, because of this kind of national security apparatus, right? To the extent that people move away from the cleared work, we can't just clear. Everybody knows the issue that we have with clearing new resources. So how do we backfill for these people to the extent they aren't there? How do we get them going? So that's a concern. Government pivoted, and CARES Act 3610 was hugely important and is helping a lot of those businesses as well as the ones that are represented here today. But what will happen on, I think it's December 11th, somewhere around there, but when we need to re-up that, and given everything that's going on, both in the political environment and everything else, what is going to happen with the CARES Act, and how will that impact the other businesses? I think fortunately a lot can be done virtually, just as Angel and Vinny laid out, and I think there are going to be some lasting changes, most, maybe all of which are just for the better, both from a mission contribution standpoint and personal life balance and all those other things. But there are others that will need to swing back. And so how do we balance that? How do we make sure that we stay aligned, the contractors and the government employees? I think, in some respects, I agree with the point. I think Vinny made it. I apologize if Angel did, just around, it actually made us closer going through this together. I have heard stories where that may not be true, right? Where, I'm using mission budget to fund some things that are not as directly, not directly contributing to the mission as much as I would have hoped. And I, hold contractors more generally responsible. And so, this is a huge industry. It's hugely important to the federal government's efficiency and success, and candidly, the country's prosperity and security overall. And so making sure that we remain aligned, and I don't mean to be the sour guy here, because Angel and Vinny were all success and all rainbows and sunshine. And I think that's right. We've largely pivoted. Mine is maybe one of, we had some challenges getting to a good point where we are now, and making sure that we stay on that trajectory and we don't slide backwards, probably.
Yeah, they're all good points, Chris. And I had a follow-up question for you on that, because you talked about staying aligned and being connected even more so now than ever before with our clients. And that kind of leads into the next question I was going to ask, because we've all had great flexibility pre-COVID to interact one-on-one with our customers, right? And now we're operating in this virtual environment, so we don't have that direct interface like we normally would be able to walk into the office to say hello and sit down and chat. So now that we're operating in that type of environment, how has that impacted the ability to manage the flow of information, just general information that you would normally get from that face-to-face interface? How are you managing that on the receiving end, and your ability to be able to communicate with the government, whether it's on the contracting side of government or on the program side of government. I know your clientele, as you said, are contractors like us, and maybe not so much that direct interface with the customer themselves, but maybe you're hearing something from your clients on some of the challenges that they may be having in that area.
Absolutely, and I think there's a few different angles I'll take on this. Number one is just creativity, and this part isn't unique, candidly, to the government contracting industry. This is true across the country, across the world. What we did before, we need to do differently now. So people are getting creative with how they're going to engage both their customers and their prospective customers. Because particularly in the small business world, where Angel sounds like he has a pretty diversified portfolio right now, but for other small businesses, they aren't, right? They're pretty focused on the Navy, and I want to start doing more for the Army, or I want to start doing work for state or energy, as Angel said. And so that is trickier, right? How do you engage and expand your service offerings and how you're able to support the government during a time like that? That is much harder. I think that's a challenge, candidly, for me. Without a great solution, creativity is a cop out of an answer. But that is a challenge. And the other too is just there are some advantages to being a small business. You can be nimble. You can take calculated risks. It's kind of easier in that respect. But it's also true that during this world, I mean, I'm talking to, CEO of a 250 person business, small business, who's writing the proposal right now because, likely the SAIC competitor has, 50, 100 people all working on this thing. But because of how COVID has us separated, and you can't co-locate and you can't do all these things like you would and have a war room and things on the whiteboard and working through it, it's just a different environment. And so potentially it's harder for the small business to grow and compete against the bigs. And so, again, these are, sort of cop-out answers. Maybe I'm stating the obvious, but important to understand the challenges of our small business colleagues, certainly relative to the industry. But interested certainly to hear from you, Kathy, and Angel and Vinny on it.
No, absolutely. Staying connected to the customer as often as possible, even pre-COVID, was critical and very critical to our ability to be able to grow and get that stickiness to the customer, to understand their challenges and where they're trying to go and the objectives that they're trying to achieve in order to support mission. But I think you're right. We've had to get very creative now in how we stay engaged, with the customer and how we communicate and when they have time to communicate, because oftentimes they're on conference calls all day long, just like we are. And so those types of things have definitely, posed some challenges. And so you have to be talking sometimes to those customers, at 4:30 or 5:30 or 6 o'clock, depending on when they're available. So the creativity definitely has to come into play, irrespective of whether it's at the contracts level or at the program personnel level. It's whoever we need to speak to. We have to be adaptable to around our schedules to be able to adapt to when they are available, which has always been the case. But I think even more so now, because they find themselves on these type of sessions, just like we are, all day long, every single day of the week. So we'd definitely like to throw it over to Vinny, though, and ask him that same question to see how that's possibly impacting, your organization, Vinny.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, for sure, our company is in a unique spot in this specific topic area because, we're a digital services firm that actually, in a specific area within the digital services practice that we have, is actually helping agencies with the engagement, right? So it's not only engagement with their citizens, citizen-facing applications and programs, but also within the agency, engagement and communications with their own internal constituents. From our side, it's obviously there's certainly been some areas, new agency customer program folks that we haven't necessarily been able to get in front of just because of the environment of what's going on. I do think, and I would love to hear if there's any government representation on the call of what kind of, what are they doing to reach out to industry, outside of there's been a couple opportunities for us to have been able to respond to some sources sought, with some, white papers and, examples of how we've been able to leverage technology. For example, a very interesting use case that, we've been piloting at a couple of agencies is being able to engage with the citizens across various channels. So not just email, not just, Zoom, these platforms, but even text messaging. We've been text messaging with a number of our, government agency customers over the past several months. And so, it's very interesting that, that what is being under consideration at this point. And like Chris mentioned, the creativity is around, okay, let's look at, what are the various ways that people are engaging, outside of work. And, there's part of that they might even be interested and able to, and be interested in using as a platform or a channel to engage, with the government, right? So we've been working on a few of those type of pilots to roll out to see how that works, and it's been very, very interesting. I mean, for example, the VA, there's been a lot of engagement with veterans across various channels, including, believe it or not, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, text messaging. So it's really interesting to see, how everyone is kind of operating at this point, right? So, and obviously the whole democratization of technology, over the past several years has probably led us to some extent to this, where people are using their cell phones and iPhones and smartphones to engage. But so similar way, we're using a similar path to engage with government, as well as where opportunities are available, and for those that are open to these various types of creative solutions.
Well, Vinny, you mentioned just now, the opportunity, if there are any government personnel on the call, would love to kind of hear your thoughts on Vinny's comment regarding how the government might be engaging with, with their vendor community. So I can't tell if there's anyone on the government from, on the call, but if so, please unmute your mic and chime in or weigh in. I'll give it a second. Okay, so maybe not. Maybe somebody will join a little bit later, or we'll get a question in the chat. So Angel, definitely don't want to leave you out. On that. I know you've talked a lot about how you're engaging with your team and your team's engagement with the customer. But any more you want to add to what Chris and Vinny may have talked about on this topic?
Sure. I think two themes that we've discussed on this call thus far: engagement, right? Increased engagement, reciprocal engagement, and also decentralized engagement, right? So one of the things that we've done, right, we've implemented a decentralized or an engagement strategy, right, which consists of formal and informal kind of channels, right? So to Vinny's point, right, I can't just always walk into the client space right now, right? We can't always send an email and expect to respond right away. So how do we bridge the gap, right? And I think through the use of social media, through the use of text, right, I typically like engaging our clients informally through text. To make sure that they don't get blindsided, they know what's going on, and then by leveraging the on-site staff, we typically engage with them formally, right? So I think an informal and a formal engagement strategy is key. One that's decentralized, right? That uses multiple forms of technology, obviously phone, text, email, and in some cases social media, right? We put a lot of things on social media, on our LinkedIn specifically, right? That helps people make meaning of what's going on, right? The reality, we're working, the work day has been extended, right? It's really, you work all day basically with little breaks in between, which for some folks is great, right? Because that's, from an entrepreneur perspective, we work 7 days a week anyways, right? So I think it's great because now everybody's more in line with the way we work anyways, which is great. But most people are on social media all day long on LinkedIn. So we leverage LinkedIn, and significantly we established we implemented an SMS system, right? So key things that are going on, we'll send them out to the entire company via SMS, and typically those things have links that then link them to the to the more the whole story, whatever's going on, right? Maybe a link within our HR management system or what have you. We use, text message and Teams extensively. So, I think it's a decentralized engagement. Engagement's been decentralized, and the need for increased engagement is key, right? I think in the past, right, we're in the office, we walk into the client space, you can engage that way. We can't have that necessarily as much anymore. So how do we compensate for that, right? And I think the folks that are more willing to adopt these new ideas, decentralized engagement, more unstructured approaches, I think are ultimately going to be the best, the ones that are going to succeed at the greatest level.
Great. I totally agree. Thank you, Angel. And so we're going to wrap up with our last question, so we can leave a few minutes for any audience questions. And I'll just remind the audience and our guests that if you have a question that you want to ask, please put it in your chat, and I will ask that question toward the end. So the last question I'm going to direct first over to you, Vinny, and it's somewhat similar to the conversation we were just having, but this one really centers around the speed in which the government is actually responding to, I would say, procurements. Obviously, the COVID-19 has created, unplanned need for government contracting community to respond with innovative technologies, which you have just talked about, Angel has spoken about as well. But they've got to do it much faster than maybe previously pre-COVID, predominantly to help the government to respond to this pandemic much faster. So we've been in COVID now for 8 months. So over the past 8 months, can you speak to what your experience has been with the timeliness of the government's response to contract award, specifically to be able to award those contracts that are directly related to technologies that they need the most in order to respond to the pandemic? And I know, Chris, this may be a little bit of a different question because of your clientele, but I'm sure you'll bring it together and make it connect from your standpoint. So Vinny, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is a great topic that actually is very exciting for me, because I think this whole concept around, agile, development and deployment and the speed of being able to react and put out the products and solutions that are needed very quickly has really come to the fray now, right, with everything that's going on. And and I have specific, examples, with the VA, for example, of how they're, helping and making sure that, from the veterans' experience perspective, right, to making sure that they're able to get into the appointments. We support a enterprise communication platform for across the VA that obviously was working fantastic as the clinics and hospitals are open across the country. But as the clinics had to close or minimize the number of appointments for non-essential appointments, we had to find we were working with not just the program folks, but to your point, the contracting folks, to understand that, hey, we need to come up with a way to make sure veterans, when they arrive at the hospital or clinic, is there a way that they can text message the clinic saying, I am here, right? And so it's a new solution that needed to be pivoted based on what was existing, but it was something that needed to be done quickly, right? And contracting understood the need, the use case very quickly and easily, and we were able to get the contract awarded and execute and get the solution in place in a matter of weeks, which honestly, I think was absolutely astonishing. And obviously we were very happy to play a part in supporting the VA with that initiative. And so, and that's not the only example. I mean, we have another example where we're supporting the VA with ride transportation services, leveraging rideshare platforms for vulnerable veterans. And obviously, once COVID hit, these vulnerable veterans who are at risk that may be in transition homes or whatnot, they weren't able to get supplies and groceries at their grocery store. So, the question came up, what can we do to come up with a solution to get, supplies and meals to the veterans? And so we were able to develop a system in a matter of weeks, again, with the partnerships that we had with, the Lyft and Ubers out there, to be able to deliver those supplies and groceries to the veterans at their location, right? So it was all about the collaboration, like Angel mentioned. I mean, the way we're collaborating, communicating, it was across various channels, right? There's collaboration tools that we're leveraging, Slack, Teams, all these types of, software tools that are available to us, and we're able to use it across, government, commercial, industry lines, so that there's no issue about being able to share and collaborate, across the table. It really was literally one team, and I think that was the biggest takeaway for us, to see that the agency contracting folks were able to see the immediate need for this, and we're willing to help to make sure that nobody wanted to be the roadblock, right? So understanding the real need for making sure these solutions are in place, we wanted to make sure that we were doing our part, but in a similar note, I think the government agencies both on the program and the contracting side responded accordingly. And so I certainly hope that this continues, not just beyond this pandemic period, because I think we did see a lot of program folks that were very happy to see that contracting was very happy to see the program folks were working together, rather than throwing it over the fence, and then everyone's like saying, okay, what's going on? Where is everything? Why are things getting pushed to the right, and so forth? So it'll be interesting to see, I think, how things continue to operate here in the future. But I'm optimistic.
Okay, Angel, anything you wanted to add to that?
I think Vinny summarized it pretty well. I always say, right, it's incumbent upon us as contractors, right, to be as proactive as possible and strive to engage with the client as much as possible, right? Over communication is key, right? Don't assume they get it. Don't assume they got the message, right? We go above and beyond using, multiple types of tools, different folks within the company at different levels to engage our clients and give them the knowledge, the tools that they need to make the best decisions possible, right? I'm a big proponent of, become that easy button for your client, right? Don't make them do additional work. So, we work with our clients. We're proactive. We come up with short-term, mid-term, or long-term solutions. It's up to them if they want to use them or not. But I think if you position yourself that way as a trusted partner, not just contractor government, but a partner in support of their mission, at least for, existing opportunities, what have we seen, right? We've seen extensions, we've seen direct awards, right? And in some cases, right, those companies who weren't engaging with their client, who were just a butts and seats shop, right? A lot of them maybe lost work to folks who did spend the time to go above and beyond and engage with their clients. And again, client, employee engagement is even more critical, right? Because if your teammates, if your employees are engaged, if they're happy, guess what? They're going to be the same way with their clients, right? So I think it covers our bases on site, right? The exec team is covering our bases off site, and together we work together to really succeed and reduce any fragmentation, ambiguity, or anything that may have been there before. I think the key is to increase interdependency, right, between functional groups, right? And what does that mean? Basically, seamless integration, right, as much as possible between us as a contractor and our clients, our government clients.
Excellent. Thank you, Angel. And Chris, I think you can definitely add a little bit to that, of coming from your perspective. Want to add to that?
Yeah, just really quickly, because I do agree with everything that Vinny and Angel have said. I think the point on contracting delays, things like that, whereas maybe I was a little bit negative before, I'd be pretty positive here. I mean, at the beginning, it was really hard for everybody. Everybody was caught off guard, and work norms and processes needed to change. And I mean, candidly, if I pull myself back and look at what happened with regards to many of the procurements in 2019, and there were some delays in 2020, but was it that different from what we saw in 19, 18, 17? So I in that respect, I think the government has adapted, pivoted, and continuing to do a pretty good job.
Sorry, I was talking on mute. I was just going to say, in some respects, we've seen where there's been even more activity, with the government awarding, much, much faster, because obviously, these things are very important. Even not even thinking about the activity that happened right before the end of the fiscal year, the normal activity. but even that activity, I think to me, it seemed like it was a little bit on steroids. It was just a lot going on that we were reading about over and over again, that the government was really working diligently and trying to get those things awarded as quickly as they possibly could. So maybe we'll see.
And I'm sure there are examples, so I don't mean to, where COVID caused a delay and multiple times. I'm just talking, if I pull myself out of a specific example and look at the forest, it seems to be pretty good.
I gotcha. All right, so we've got about 5 minutes, guys, before we have to wrap this up, and before Charlie starts ringing the bell and letting me know that we're running out of time. So anyone that's in the audience who wants to pose a question, please use the chat button there to ask it. But in the meantime, I'll ask this question. So obviously, Angel, Vinny, myself, we represent the small business community. Chris, you're representing the small business community because of your clientele. And I assume that some of our guests today are also small businesses. What advice would you give to them, those who may be having difficulty, even now more than ever before pre-COVID, on how to connect and engage, communicate with the government personnel? So we talked a lot about engagement earlier. We talked about how do we maintain that communication flow, but we're in a different season now, and government is more busier now than ever before. So pre-COVID communication, current situation that we're in with COVID, how do small business get that audience? What measures or additional recommendations can you make for them to get that audience with the customer during these unprecedented times?
I mean, my 2 cents, which is probably less helpful than Angel or Vinny, so I'm going to keep mine short. But from my experience, I actually don't think it's changed that much, except the vehicle, how you would communicate is different. In some respects, they are as responsive, more responsive, if you have any sort of relationship or reason to communicate anyway, they're more engaging. There's an innate pressure, since I'm not in my office, to be responsive to someone that's reaching out, because it's part of my job, right? So, I mean, that would be my 2 cents, and then obviously would love to hear from Angel and Vinny.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, and Angel mentioned this from a government perspective about the easy button, but for a contractor perspective, we actually have the resources available, right? It's all about leveraging the resources that are available, and the beautiful thing is the 4 of us here on the panel here are representing a platform that's available to small business contractors with fantastic resources. And if you're not seeing the banner here behind me, right? So SECAF, I would encourage small business owners to absolutely, leverage the resources, the access, right? Access, including access to government leaders through the program, because there are many folks within the organization that can probably provide that introduction or help with the topic that are very pressing in our time. So it's all about leveraging resources.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Kathy, and I'll add, if you don't mind, sometimes, we implement business practices, right? Because we know they're the right thing to do, although we don't always see why until something, goes wrong. COVID is an example of that, right? I think those folks who who did implement good business practices, who had good relationships with your clients and employees, right? Fared pretty well. And a reason, I always say, if you're going to contact someone when you need the relationship, it's already too late, right? You want to build those relationships ahead of time. And I say, be authentic with your clients and your employees, engage regularly, and be part of the solution, right? It's building those relationships over time that will help you bridge that gap when things happen. And I think COVID happened, and we had to change everything, right? And I think if you don't have those relationships set up with your partners, your vendors, your employees, your clients ahead of time, right? You probably suffered some delays, some difficulties that were challenging and maybe very difficult to overcome. But I think building those relationships ahead of time being real with folks, treating people well, being part of the solution, right? I think, I always, the government, they have a lot of work on their hands, right? And there's a lot of things that happen. I think if you're part of the conversation, part of the solution, you'll be able to craft something that's beneficial to the client and ultimately, hopefully, right, beneficial to your company as well. So I always say remain engaged, be authentic, and just, engage. Engagement is key.
And with that, guys, we're going to call this a wrap. Charlie, hopefully we stayed on time. But first, thank you so much to Angel and Chris and Vinny for participating. And hopefully our audience received a few nuggets that they'll be able to take back to their respective organizations. That'll help them also understand the perspective of a contractor as pertains to how the government is operating in this COVID environment. But we also want to thank Charlie and GMU for the opportunity to invite SECAF to be a part. Just as Vinny indicated, SECAF is a great organization, lots of resources. If you're trying to make connections, I invite you to join SECAF. Go to secaf.org. For more information, to find out a little bit more just about what that organization is providing to the small business community. So with that, I'll kick it over to Charlie. Say have a great day, everyone. Be well, stay safe. Until next time. Charlie?
Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate you all participating today. It's a good conversation, and I wish you all the best. More next time. Thanks.
Thank you. Everybody have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you. You as well.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.